David, thank you. Tonight, a family is demanding answers after they say their loved one died following a medical emergency at Oshkosh Correctional Institution.
The Wisconsin Department of Corrections confirms that 40-year-old Dwayne Staten died on February 14th. His family is now calling for a full investigation. They are disputing what they were told about how he died. Samantha Cavalli spoke with Staten's mother.
It's the phone call Annette Staten wasn't expecting to get. Her son, 40-year-old Dwayne Staten, an inmate at Oshkosh Correctional, was being taken to the hospital.
I got that call February 13, 2026, saying they had rushed my son to the hospital.
Less than 24 hours later, he was gone. It's now the second death reported at OCI this year. Last month, a 43-year-old inmate died following a fight with other inmates.
It hurted me. I just broke down crying and stuff. And I this can't be true. Can't be true.
Staten was serving a prison sentence for sexual assault and robbery convictions from nearly 20 years ago in Milwaukee. Prison officials told her his injuries were linked to a suicide attempt, but Staten claims hospital staff told her they saw no signs of self-harm, but that he had suffered serious head injuries.
They never told me how many times he was hit, but
they said he was struck.
He was struck. That's all they said.
An autopsy has been completed, but a cause of death has not yet been revealed. Until then, Annette says she'll keep speaking out, hoping someone can tell her what really happened to her son.
But I can have closure for my son.
We need justice.
And justice.
Oshkosh police say the death is not considered suspicious and no one is in custody. The Wisconsin Department of Corrections says federal privacy laws prevent them from releasing additional details. In Oshkosh, Samantha Cavalli, Action 2 News.